Well, the First Nation community is in desperate need of help as COVID-19 spreads through the remote community. Of 480 residents, nearly half have tested positive for the virus. And the chief is now asking for help again as his community struggles with the strain the virus is placing on everyone.
It's been, 7 or 8 days since we declared an emergency here in our community. And at this point now, I think we're almost at the breaking point. People are exhausted, emotionally and physically.
So on the situation in that Northern Ontario community, how will the federal government respond? Patty Hajdu is the Minister of Indigenous Services. She's in Thunder Bay. Minister, thanks for joining us again today.
Happy to be here.
So the chief of the Bearskin Lake First Nation says the community is almost at the breaking point. What is the latest situation there as you understand it?
Well, thanks very much. And yes, you can hear the anxiety and the fatigue in Chief Kaminawadaman's voice. This is obviously extremely stressful for any community, and I think we're all feeling this in communities across the country. But Bearskin is a remote community. It's a small community, and when the functioning of the community is threatened with a number of people who are sick or therefore isolating, obviously it means an all hands on deck moment. And so you can hear how tired and scared the chief is. Certainly, we've been there, as you know, since the beginning of this outbreak. But I feel for Bearskin and for the many other First Nations communities across the country who are seeing numbers rise and feeling that sense of anxiety and fatigue and fear.
The chief says they've been in a state of emergency for about 8 days, and that he'd asked for boots on the ground on Monday. Why has help not yet been sent in?
Well, there is help on the ground at the moment. Obviously, daily calls are taking place between the community and the emergency managers at Indigenous Services Canada. We've had health professionals in place since December 30th. We've been covering the cost of paid support from both within the community, from the Wendigo Tribal Council, to help with some of those essential functionings of this community that include things like chopping wood and delivering supplies to households and keeping things running back and forth from the airport. We've covered the cost of charters and, of course, provided a number of financial supports for the community. But as of last night, we received a formal request from Ontario for additional human resource support through the request of the military. And officials are meeting right now, along with officials from Bearskin, to understand exactly how best to place those resources and what kinds of skill sets they'll need.
Why wait until the request came, given how dire it's been?
Well, I'll just say that we didn't wait. In fact, as I mentioned, we have a number of resources in place, both human resources and financial resources. Of course, as the outbreak continues, I think you heard the chief talk about the exhaustion of the community, and that's why we're working with the community right now and with the province of Ontario to make sure we deploy the right professionals.
And so when will the military, be there?
Well, very quickly. My expectation is that this request gets processed extremely quickly. I know officials have been meeting today, and hopefully we'll have news very quickly.
An Ontario NDP MP spoke on News Now earlier about how overwhelmed the people are psychologically, and that right now there is no support on the ground in the perspective of the MP. How do you deal with that, the emotional and psychological effect of this?
Well, first of all, I think it's reasonable to say that whenever a community is under a significant outbreak like this, of course, people are going to feel anxious. They're worried about not just obviously the safety and wellness of community members from the virus, but also just the daily functioning of their community. I think there's one silver lining, if there is one, and that's that this community is highly immunized. So far, fingers crossed, we haven't seen the need for medevacs or hospitalization. It is a great sign that the vaccines are doing doing their job to protect people from severe illness and obviously death. But nonetheless, when there are that many people sick, it affects the functioning of a community. And as I mentioned, some of the requests that we've been able to support are around those very things that keep houses warm, that keep people fed, that keep people safe and secure, that keep the essential functioning of the community going. So, all I'll say is that we're going to be there for Bearskin Lake for as long as it takes, with whatever it takes. And as the community identifies gaps, the department is working very quickly to fill those. The chief, as you know, I've spoken directly with the chief. I spoke with Grand Chief Fox this morning, and we're going to continue to be there politically and from the services coordination level.
What do you say to the community right now? What is your message?
Well, my message to Bearskin Lake is to keep supporting one another to the best of your ability, to keep, obviously, spirits as high as possible, that Canada will be there for you, that, Ontario is obviously entering into this space with us, and that we're working all together to get through this. But we will have to continue to work together. We will have to continue to the best of our ability, keep people, each other safe. And I think that goes for, without saying, that this is a countrywide surge right now. So they're not alone in their fear and anxiety. And the final thing I'll say is that if any of us know of individuals in our lives, of people in our lives, family members in our lives that are reluctant to get vaccinated, we've all got to do what we can right now to convince our loved ones, our family members, our community members that vaccination is a way to protect ourselves from severe illness and from death, and that we need to do what we can to help give people comfort to take this life-saving tool.
A message that can't be said often enough. There are, as you know, additional First Nation communities in Ontario that are experiencing similar COVID-19 related emergencies. A number of them. Will you be sending, resources, aid there proactively to avoid seeing what we're playing out at Bearskin Lake?
Well, absolutely. Part of our response as a government has been to freely enable financial resources to communities. Oftentimes, communities know better than the federal government what's needed in what order and exactly how. But we continue to coordinate those emergency services with a variety of different First Nations communities and tribal councils. That work is ongoing. It's happening over the weekend to make sure that people are as prepared as possible. Listen, it isn't about money, though. It's also about health, human resources. So we can, we have the money to be able to support people for the supplies and the equipment that they need for essential ingredients like food and firewood, for charters to get things places. But it's the health, human resources and other kinds of human resources that are really tapped. And so, again, we're working very quickly with communities to understand where those crunch points are and to help enable that support as quickly as possible.
Minister, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time tonight.
That's the Minister of Indigenous Services, Patty Hajdu.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.